think Michael Jordan is the only person that will not have a fucking Instagram. And he still will be, and he still be one of the most popular basketball players. If we're talking about the Michael Jordan that played in 80s, 90s, plays now with that intensity.
Yeah. What about you, Mo? You think he was fucked up, his personality, or?
It makes sense for how competitive he was, because I think Kobe Bryant was the same way. You know, he was, a good competitor, but you wouldn't want to be his teammate.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Yes, I guess personally people won't like him, but to play with him, you'll want to play with him.
He makes you a winner.
That's true. And
he makes you do what you have to do to win. It could be in basketball, it could be in life.
This follow-up question is pretty much similar. What do you learn about Michael Jordan throughout this docu-series?
That he just didn't give a fuck, and the way he trash talked.
Yeah.
That was like every time I heard him like laugh at other people, I would laugh. I'm like, yo, this motherfucker's evil, bro.
Yeah.
He's like a villain. He's like a villain in a Marvel movie.
Why are you, Milton?
I don't think I learned anything like personally, like stuff about his background I didn't know about, but him as a person, like personally, I think I've always thought of him as like that, like very competitive, probably talked a lot of shit. Like I remember like a scene where in one of the episodes where he's about to fight, Reggie Miller or somebody, and you could just see his mouth, and he's like, "Fuck you, motherfuckers," whatever. So yeah, I don't think I learned anything new about him, like his personality wise, but just his background and stuff with his father and all of that stuff.
I think what I learned on this whatever docu-series, his head, like what's in his head, like the drive he has. I mean, we all knew like he was. In order for him to get to be Michael Jordan, it was hard work. It's never easy, but like to see like the stuff, like you said, the stuff that he made up in his head, like all that shit that goes through his head, that what he thinks, like that was like one thing that surprised me. Like shit, you knew he was the best, but you didn't know like the stuff he would do, like how much he was thinking about basketball the whole time. Like this guy doesn't even talk about his kids really. He even like talked about it like when he came back at 45, he did the summer camps just to see how the other players were playing, so he could then get notes, so he could know what to do that season. And when he lost to Orlando, his trainer said that he normally takes time off. Nah, he was the next day working out. So it's just like that type of stuff that you never see in the background. You always see his highlights, but you never see like all the shit he did to fucking go through that. You're like, wham, that's just crazy. Like the way his mind is. So like that's what I learned a lot from the docu-series.
Yeah, I learned that I gotta give a shout out to his Mama Jordan.
Oh yeah.
Tell him to go take the Nike interview and get fuck Adidas and go to Nike.
Yeah.
So salute to his mother. And said, "Baby, go to Nike." And he never looks back. But it's like Lee's saying is in these 10 episodes, 10 hours of watching the Bulls. It started off as a Bulls documentary because it was the last dance, but we all call it the Michael Jordan documentary because basically we saw more of Michael Jordan than the Bulls. It shows you what hard work and dedication and for you to be focused, what it gets you when you make your mind like, this is what I want. For her X amount of months, I got to be this way because at the end of this road, I'm getting a championship. And he was focused into that. So imagine him as a fucking coach. Like, his players won't want to play for him.
That's true.
He's the owner of the Hornets, and I don't see him being that tough on them right now. Imagine that Jordan from back in those days as the owner now of the Hornets. He won't have teams. He won't have players.
Yeah.
They'll be calling human resource on him all the time because they'll be like, "Oh, he said this to me. He called me a punk bitch. I don't want to dribble the ball." How the hell a 52-year-old man who owns the Hornets says, I could beat every player on my team. And now, 3 years later, one of his point guards calling him out like, yo, come play me. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jordan gets in your mind. So that's what I learned that, yo, stay committed, stay focused, and at all costs, no matter what. By the time we win the ring or the championship, I will apologize to you if you think you need an apology.
What about you guys? Have any last questions? Mill, do you have any questions that you have for the podcast? Or I know Al, I think you flashed us some questions.
Yeah, I have one question, and then if you want, we can move on to episode 9 and 10, and then we can finish up the thing.
Go ahead.
It's up to you. What was the biggest Jordan accomplishment? What was the biggest one? His first three-peat or the second?
Fuck, I would have to probably say the second.
That was a bigger one?
Because he came back from basketball. They went, 72 and 10. A year later on in your career is after your father. Yeah, I would probably have to say that. I mean, it's hard though because they had to go through the Pistons the first one. So I probably got the answer wrong. Who knows? What do you guys think?
What about you?
I'm going with the first three because it took him from 84 all the way to 91 to get the first ring. You know what I'm saying? And he was committed because as soon as he got drafted, he's like, get on my back because I'm getting this town a ring. You know what I'm saying? And it was hard those first 7 seasons for him because it was like inch by inch he was getting closer and closer every time. And when he did accomplish that moment, I think that first championship, just he saw what he had to do and he was able to get the other two. So I say the first 3.
Yeah, I think both of them were significant, but I think the first one. The first three-peat was the most significant because that was the first time he branched off away from the whole Magic, Larry, Michael conversation. Like, I think that was, like, really what put him ahead of those people and then solidified him as one of the greats. Yeah. And then the second three-peat was, like, that. I think that's what, like, made him the greatest of all time. No. You know what I mean? Like, I think the first three-peat made him a great player, like one of the greats, and then the second three-peat made him the greatest of all time.
There you go. Yep.
Can you order something?
All right. If there's no more questions, I'll just do a quick synopsis of the last 2 episodes, and then we could finish up with the questions.
Yep.
All right. So episode 9 opens with the Pacers versus the Bulls. There's a part where Reggie Miller said that Michael Jordan told him, "Don't ever talk like that to Black Jesus," during one of their fights. Yeah, and then it goes into the 5th NBA Finals against Utah. It was Utah's first finals ever, and Karl Malone received the NBA MVP, as we all know, pissed off Michael Jordan. And then also, I didn't write this in the initial notes, but I just remembered that was the episode where they talked about the flu game, which he later talked about that it was actually food poisoning, not the flu. And it was that they had ordered pizza late at night because there was nothing open. There was like 5 delivery men that came to the door to drop off the pizza. They thought it was kind of strange. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, he started throwing up nonstop. But he kind of pushed himself to play that game. I think they won, and then they won the series, obviously, to win their 5th. They go back to when he was still playing baseball, and Brian Russell, who's on the Utah Jazz, about like a story where he was talking shit to Michael when he was playing baseball, saying, "Oh, I wish you would. Why you had to run and do baseball? I wish you had a pair of shorts right now. I'd knock your ass down, whatever." And then the rest is history. He beat the Utah Jazz that Brian Russell was playing for twice in the finals. Then it talks about John Paxson, who was part of that first like three-peat, and how he mentored Steve Kerr. And then that goes into Steve Kerr's family and his background about his father being shot in the Middle East, in Beirut, and how they had that in common, him and Jordan. They never really talked about it, according to him, about how both of them lost their fathers. And then towards the end, they talk about MJ befriending a security guard and he felt like that guy was like a father figure to him. And this guy named Gus, he later on was diagnosed with lung cancer. But it really showed that episode how Jordan, another side of Jordan, was that he was very loyal to people that was close to him. When he was friendly with you, he was a very loyal person. He would go to that guy when he had lung cancer, he would go with him to the doctor's office and stuff like that, you know? And then going into this episode 10, it starts with game 1 of the 1998 finals against Utah. Utah wins the first game. They say that Utah Jazz at this point was a better team than the last time they faced in the finals. So Utah won game 1. The Bulls won game 2. Bulls won game 3 with every Bulls player scoring. And that was the same game that the Utah scored the lowest point total since the invention of the shot clock with 54 points. Dennis Rodman misses a practice to do a wrestling event before Game 4 with the NWO. Game 6, they talk about Scottie Pippen leaving the game due to a back injury and then becoming a decoy for the rest of the game because his back was all fucked up. After the 6th championship, the Bulls owner... So after everything was done, the owner of the Bulls asked Phil Jackson to come back for another year. Jackson said he needed a rest. He didn't want to coach a rebuild year. And then I think they talk about the owner. He says why he really didn't bring them back. He said at that point they would have been too expensive to bring back because everybody would have had a very high value since they had won so many championships and stuff. Jordan disagrees with it. He thinks they could have won a 7th championship if they would have just signed for like a 1-year deal. And that was the end of episode 10 of my notes. So
I agree with Jordan saying they could have probably won the number 7.
Who won the 7th? Who won the chip that year after?
It was a short season. It was only 50 games because they went on strike.
Well, it had to be the Knicks, right? Because the Knicks always go after he retires or some shit. Maybe the Knicks against San Antonio.
But I think San Antonio won the next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was that was Tim Duncan's first championship too. I think with David Robinson, right?
And I think Steve Kerr was in that team.
Yeah, I think he's one of the few players. I forgot, like top 5 players that's won 4 championships in a row.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like again, I always say Jordan played without a dominant center, so it'd be interesting to see how he would have faced against. Like I know he faced Ewing, but you know the Knicks did give them problems. Those series were always very like close, and they could have gone either way. You know, I just don't see what was his name, Wellington and Longley really doing shit. But who knows? Maybe Rodman would have stepped up. I had a question. I had a few questions. This is a random one. Who do you think was the best basketball player turned coach?
Fuck. Both good.
Not Phil Jackson.
Yeah, both good, right? Maybe Doc Rivers.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
He was a good basketball player.
Shit, because I was gonna say fucking Mark Jackson, but he coached a little bit. He never got like major props because he had Golden State before Steve Kerr. But we could say Steve Kerr because this motherfucker won championships and won championships as a coach too.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, because I mean, Pat Riley was a coach too, but I mean, I was a player also, and so was Phil Jackson.
So
but those
wasn't
are kind
Magic
of like
Johnson?
I think they're more.
Magic, didn't he coach the Lakers at some point back in the days?
Yeah,
Magic
that shit was
Johnson?
trash.
And Isaiah Thomas, remember? He coached the Knicks.
Trash.
Yeah.
Yeah, even
Sexual harassment.
I think out of those 3, like Isaiah, Magic, and Larry Bird, I think Larry Bird was probably the best coach out of those 3, even though he didn't win a championship. But when he coached the Pacers, they did decent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, next question.